Assalamu alaikum and welcome to my new show, Living a Dynamic Life. I am Miriam Louise Curtis. I'm a healer and a homeopath, hypnotherapist, life coach, motivational speaker and authoress. I absolutely love my life. I live a very dynamic, passionate life, and I'm here on the show to introduce other passionate people, other holistic therapists. Over the years, I have had the pleasure of working with many hundreds of people, if not thousands by now, helping them to change their lives and hopefully inspiring them to change the lives of others. I really feel that I embrace my life now, and although I've always lived as a Sufi, it was in 2002 when I began to be very seriously ill. Within the coming time of 2003, the illness didn't lift and I was getting more and more concerned. Towards the middle of the year, I was eventually diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. I was very sad, I was very frustrated, and I really couldn't see any way out. I was told by the conventional doctors that they couldn't do anything for me, that I would be on antidepressants for the rest of my life, even though I hadn't actually asked for them, and that basically, in my early 30s, I wouldn't be able to do anything other than just stay at home. I really made a decision then to change my life, and from that change I really then embraced the Sufi life. I live from the heart, I teach to the heart, from the heart. My children have been brought up the Sufi way. My children are all empowered people. I made a decision to change my life, which I'm hoping I'm going to be able to do for many of you viewers, to give you inspiration, to encourage you, to show you that you can be empowered to change your own life. And sometimes, believe you me, all it takes is that decision to change. When I was ill, I had absolutely no energy. Walking a very short distance was very tiring for me. I was exhausted most of the time. Doing the housework with the children was really, really draining on my resources. What I decided to do was make and take a positive change, which took courage. I trained as a healer, and I also decided to try homeopathy within my life. Obviously, I've just said I've now since trained as a homeopath. I've been practicing for many years. I thoroughly enjoy my work. I've worked internationally. I've been so blessed to work in Switzerland, France, Spain, Greece, and I've recently been invited over to Australia. Through my work, many people have changed their lives. I don't work. Work is no longer a four-letter word ended in K. Through my book, The Goldfish That Jumped, I have written not just an autobiography, but a book about our spiritual values. We all have religious beliefs, spiritual beliefs. We have religious dogma sometimes. We have political dogma and social dogma. And unfortunately, many of us are bogged down with this. I was certainly in a life where I was bogged down. I was working in the civil service full time. I was divorced. I was managing my 4 children on my own. I had to change. There's a saying in spirituality that religious people are frightened of hell. Spiritual people have already been there. And we've all heard the saying that through the dark night of the soul we grow. It was through that illness that I changed my life. Within training to be a healer and trying the homeopathy, within 3 months I was running my own clinic. That was over a decade ago. And if I can do it, there's many people out there too that can do it. Reiki has been recognized now and is being recognized all across the world for its healing abilities, for opening the heart center and bringing balance to the soul. We all need to live in balance, mentally, spiritually and emotionally. I'd really crashed when I had chronic fatigue syndrome. There was no way back for me. There was no way through but to go through the pain, realized what had caused me to be ill in the first place and move through that pain to where I am now. Now I live a very balanced life, a very wholesome life, and a very privileged life because I meet some beautiful people. On the show Living a Dynamic Life, I will be interviewing many dynamic people. And for my guest today, Pauline Tomlin, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Miriam. It's an honour to be here, really is. Thank you.
Thank you for coming along. I want to introduce you as a motivational speaker
Yep.
and a life coach, and you're a fellow author as well.
Yes, yes.
So tell me, how do you live a dynamic life?
Well, I think for most people, they would imagine dynamism, if you look it up, literally means you get this impression of someone whizzing around, spinning lots of plates in a really kind of like sophisticated manner and just doing it with ease. But I've come to realise that being dynamic actually means impacting in a positive way. And so I feel that's the best way that I can be dynamic. And it's been a long, slow journey, but it's a journey I'm absolutely loving. I'm absolutely loving it. I mean, to feel this good every single day, to wake up feeling so grateful. And it's not ego-centred, because most of the time you don't know the impact that you're having. You just know that you've just been called to kind of say something nice to someone, or make them feel good about who they are, or reassure them when they're feeling a bit doubtful. And for me, I'm really seriously lucky, because I'm in a position where, as a head of English, I not only teach but run a department, and the boys that I teach are just amazing. So every single day I get an opportunity to lift someone's spirit and to look to the best in someone and convince them that they're as good as what I see. And when you see that happen, it's amazing. It's the best feeling in the world, because to see that person suddenly sit up straight, and it's almost like they start to fill up with sound, like an egg timer, and it starts to fill up. It feels like they're doing that, and they start to realise that actually they are beautiful, they are talented, they are worthy, and they're worthy of everything and anything. They're worthy of as much abundance as they want to draw to themselves. But it's really not about the material. It really isn't. I mean, I think when I was younger, like most people, we get caught up. We think that the world is about having a good great career, getting married, having the 4-bedroomed house and the holidays abroad and the home abroad and all of that. And we're all
material goals.
The material things, this solid stuff here. And then you get to middle age and you do it all right. You're the great daughter, the responsible sister. You become a loving, caring mum. You're probably working full time as well, if it's today's society. You acquired the husband, you went to university, you got the degree, you got the profession, you did all the right things. And then you get to a point, and for me, that was kind of early 30s, when I just sat there one day and I just realised I wasn't happy. Despite everything that I'd worked for.
You're talking about kind of fulfillment.
Absolutely.
And the spiritual values of the soul.
Yes.
And I think it's very valuable what you've just said, because a lot of people kind of assume that living a life and being successful is about abundance. Mm-hmm. And yet, obviously, as kind of spiritually aware people,
yes,
and I do believe that you live the Sufi way very much when we've had our conversations and listening to you and everything else. You teach from the heart to the heart, as I do.
Yes. Yeah.
How do you really motivate the boys, and what would you say to someone who was looking for a more spiritual life?
Okay, I'll take the first part of the question first. Mm-hmm. Part of it is kind of natural. So you're kind of asking me to kind of break down what it is I do. But if I was to do that, I would say it is when I speak from the heart that you have the greatest impact. Those times when I'm in my head and I'm worrying about grades and data and all of that, and that's all part of it. It gives me a framework and it gives me a picture. But when I really, really want to connect with them and get them to understand just how valuable they are, it's always in those moments when I stop and I go, okay, and I speak to the heart of them, and I'll say things like, I'll tell them what I see. I tell them why I want success for them so much, because I just see so much beauty in them. And when you speak that to someone, you want to see them shift. They really, really change. And I think it's when I'm heart-centered, it kind of, it's like Marianne Williamson said, you give others permission to be their best selves as well, when they see you being your best self.
Do you think it's kind of, because obviously you're a teacher and you're head of English.
Yes, yeah.
And to me, I've spoken to a lot of people who, they may be teachers, but you probably know some of them they're tired. Mm-hmm. They've lost their passion. They've lost the drive.
Yeah.
You obviously teach with passion.
Yeah, I'd like to think so.
But from what you said, and it's obvious you love, the children, the boys that you work with, how do you think they feel about you?
I'd like to think that they see Miss Tomlin as a role model, because it's not just about saying it, it's about living it as well. I think a lot of my essence, or a lot of my relationship with them is a feeling thing rather than just Miss Tomlin in the classroom. So I think quite a lot of it is backed up by the feeling, the energy that is generated within the classroom. I make it safe for them to feel that they can make mistakes. I tell them
as we all do
absolutely.
in life every day of the week, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, some of our biggest mistakes have been some of our most enlightening moments.
Learnings,
and because you know that, you give them permission and say, it's okay. Okay, you made a mistake, so what did you learn from that? How do you move forward from that? And that's where the learning comes. And I think that gives them a sense that they don't have to get it right all the time. They don't have to be perfect all the time, because we are perfect in our imperfection.
I totally agree.
And it's the imperfections and it's the journey that we're on that is just so amazing. And I think once you embrace that it's a journey and that you are here to explore and to find out, it becomes so magical, really. And you understand that even when you have pitfalls or when you have down days, that there's a precious little gem in there somewhere.
So how do you feel when you have boys who are maybe challenging or presenting with challenging behaviour, let's say? What's your advice there?
What I do quite a lot of the time is I'll try and get them one-to-one, because some people feel when they're in an arena that they're pressured to behave in a certain way. They've got stuck in a rut of being the clown or being the cocky one that gives everyone the mouth, etc. So when I try and say, okay, can I just have a conversation with you at the end, or can we have a chat at break time? Then I'll often say to them, listen, I'm talking to you as just another human being here. So I position it that I'm not superior to them. I'm not talking to them as their teacher or someone who they should obey. I'm just talking to them as the human spirit here. And I tell them what I see in them. I tell them what the potential is and what I would like them to try and latch on to. Now, it doesn't mean that the first time I have that conversation, they're going to switch, get it, and change. You have to keep feeding it through and keep dripping it through. But when you love them enough, you do. You care enough to keep doing it, to keep doing it. And once they latch on to one little thing, or they have one little area of success, or they shift their attitude for one lesson, and that results in them succeeding and doing something that they previously thought they couldn't do, that's when you build on it and you go, you see, what did I tell you? Shift the attitude and you'll get the success that you're really craving. And then you build on that. And yeah, it's happened quite a few times.
I really feel, and from talking to you and knowing you, that you are passion driven. And I can't imagine a day where you don't wake up and feel that passion as soon as you wake up. Now, one of the things in the Quran and the Sufi tradition is to pray, as first thing in the morning. And of course, when we bring that into law of attraction as well, law of attraction is obviously wherever you put your thoughts, that's what we create and that's what we manifest. So you and I are well versed in law of attraction, and you and I teach that. Now, what is your advice on anybody looking to kind of think positive perhaps in the morning and think at the vital times? Because when obviously the Muslims pray, it's kind of the dawn, the sunset, just after lunch, and certainly just as we're going to bed, because our thoughts are really important then.
Absolutely.
Because the soul is empowered. So what kind of thoughts would you be waking up with in the morning?
The first thing I do is when I'm kind of, when you're half awake, your eyes are open but you're not quite there, I just say what I'm grateful for, what I was grateful for the day before if I haven't said it, or my first thought is, oh, thank you for giving me another day, another day of potentiality, because that's what every day is. It's potentiality. Anything can happen, and it's that wonderment that I'm really, really saying thank you for that. I love being here. I want to be here for a long time. I want to be a great, great, great grandmother. I want to see my children and grandchildren. So I'm grateful for that. That's the first thing. But I find myself being grateful for really little things that we can easily take for granted. Like every time I have something to eat, I say, oh, thank you, because I don't have to struggle to get that. I'm grateful that I can just go to the shop. I'm grateful that I have the means that the universe or Allah or the divine has provided me with the means to provide for myself. Some people are starving. Some people are having to walk miles to a well just to get some water to drink, and I turn a tap. So I'll often have a little thought. And when I'm rushing in the morning to get to work, when those lights are all green, I'm thankful for those as well. And I do feel that when you're thankful, it just kind of, it just like
It
this little
just
ball
kind of rolls,
that
doesn't
picks
it?
up momentum, and
Yeah.
things just start to go better and better and better. It's something you practice. It's not something that necessarily happens overnight. And so I would say to them, don't get frustrated with yourself. Just start. Just start. And like a muscle, you know, you don't bench press 50 kg the minute you go into the gym, do you? You have to lift slightly heavier and heavier weights. And it starts with being conscious of your thoughts. And once you're conscious that you've said something to yourself that was negative, just go, oh, actually, no. And just once you start catching yourself, you then start changing the thought. And once you change the thought, you generate more positive thought, and then those positive thoughts accelerate and accelerate. And you'll just find that your life and your day just starts rolling itself out really, really smoothly. And you're just filled with joy all the time. It's fantastic.
It's quite a beautiful way to be, and
Yeah.
I have to agree with you. Since I made the decision to make that conscious
Yes,
change,
yeah.
the Buddhists will teach about mindfulness, obviously, within the Sufi tradition and a lot of the Muslim traditions. They talk about meditation.
Yes.
And some people say that when we pray, we ask Allah for help, we ask God for help. But when we actually meditate, we actually listen.
Yes.
And I think part of any spiritual person's journey is actually learning to listen,
Yes.
be it our kind of inner knowing or a feeling, and it's learning to trust ourselves.
Yeah.
Within your work, and obviously I have a lot of respect for you, and you obviously love the boys, and I'm sure that they do love you, and I know you're well respected on the team of staff that you work with as well. How do you feel if those boys, you were to look at them in 10 or 20 years,
Yes.
because as a teacher you're in a very powerful place. You
Absolutely.
have a lot of position of power, which can be abused or obviously
Yes.
used to its benefit. And we all realise that in England, unfortunately, a lot of the education system is based on the 3 R's, reading, writing and arithmetic. But what about values, morals, communication skills?
Well, I think the basis of the education system is that, but I think any teacher sitting here, regardless of myself, would say that we are responsible for the moral, social and spiritual development of the children that we teach. And it's something that you kind of do automatically, I think, because if another boy starts teasing another boy, you will stop and say, sorry, but that's not acceptable behaviour. You might then question the rest of the class and say, why is that not acceptable? Why do we not do that? So you live it all the time. If you're not pointing out to them didactically by telling them, just by getting them to ask questions of each other or ask questions of you, you're showing them how we should live as a community, how we're all connected, how it's with support that we actually all progress. I think I remember telling you earlier that the story of the wall, I have this analogy that I tell the pupils, which is if success was a wall, it was really quite high, and we're all scrabbling about at the bottom trying to get on top of it. One person manages to get onto the top, and you know they have a choice in that moment. They can be, well, I'm successful, I'm here, and kick the rest of you down and keep them down because they want to keep success for themselves, or they can reach out a hand and pull someone up. And if those two pull another 2 up, and those two pull another 2 up, then you've got 16 people on this wall. Now, if that very first person starts to slip, success starts to slip away from them, then they start to fall off. More than likely, the first person they pulled up, or the third, is going to pull them back up and say, no, you're staying with us, we're going to keep you here. And so everyone is living abundantly. And that's the thing that I really try and impress upon the pupils. Firstly, we are all different, that we're meant to be different, because one of the things that children can do and could be quite nasty about is they will tease each other for their differences. And it can be quite painful. So I make it plain that we're all meant to be different, that we're all just flowers in the same garden, tended by the same gardener. And that gardener you can call the divine, Allah, God, the universe, you know, kind of divine energy. And I said, well, who wants a garden full of daffodils, all looking the same? They're beautiful, but actually how much more rich and varied it is to have a garden that's full of, got some pansies and some chrysanthemums and daffodils and some irises, and, you know, so I just say to them, we're all flowers in the same garden. We all have the same gardener. It doesn't really matter how you access, whether you're praying 5 times a day to Allah, whether you're getting on your knees at a Baptist church, or whether you're like me, you're meditating in the morning. All we're all doing is asking our heart to connect with God and with Spirit. And as long as you're doing that, Allah will be there to listen.
And how do you feel many people kind of disconnect from that, really, don't they? And obviously, in my work, many of the people that I've treated and many of the people who've been really poorly, it's been a result of shutting the soul down.
Yes.
And for me, it's very, very sad when you know, see someone, and especially seeing a grown man cry, because they suddenly realise and they're suddenly faced with the mirror. Oh my God, I've done work, sleep, work, sleep, work, sleep, running around the goldfish bowl.
Yes.
And suddenly they want to make that change. And you and I have made a lot of changes in our lives. And you've obviously brought your family up on your own after a divorce, you know, similar to myself.
Yeah.
And I do think that from these times of change and embracing the soul into our lives on a deeper level, for us it may well be more deeper than perhaps for other people. But what we're here to do is to inspire people that, hang on, if we can do it, you know, other people can do it as well.
Absolutely.
So you obviously have very strong morals, principles, values, and you obviously have a beautiful heart centre.
Bless you.
And a very powerful soul.
Thank you.
And you have the ability to spread that out to people as well.
Yeah.
So what about your personal life? How did you cope with your divorce? Because obviously that's usually a dark night of the soul for most people.
Oh yes, and it is. But I'm actually, where I sit now, I'm really grateful for the experience. And I'll tell you why. I mean, if anyone listening in or watching is going through something that is really, really quite a dark place for them to be, and they're struggling and they're just like, I cannot handle this, I don't know what to do. First of all, I'm here to tell them you can. Allah,
Me too.
Yeah, Allah, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. There will be a light at the end of it. Sometimes that light is just to just have a good cry and go to sleep, because the next day the mist clears and something will come. But there's always a message that comes, something always comes through that gives you the ability to keep going. And when you come through that and you then look back months later, years later, whatever, you then realise that actually that event and all those other events are the events that have got me to who I am now. And I love who I am now. So I'm very grateful for those events happening, because they gave me the opportunity to choose and create who I wanted to be in this life. I could have chosen to be bitter, resentful, argumentative, you know, want to crucify my ex-husband or whatever. But I didn't. I chose a different way, and that different way has made me like myself and love myself all the better every single day. Not only that, it's been an example to my children. And so they're more loving and more heart-centred as a result of that. Now, we're none of us perfect. We all have moments where we slip back into that. We have that judgment about someone. But what it does give you is the ability to say, no, hang on a second, take that back. Okay, that wasn't the right thing. They have the right to choose who they want to be in that moment. You have the right to choose whether or not you're going to respond to it in the same way, with the same energy, or you're going to choose a different energy. And if you choose a different energy, more often than not, their energy amazingly just dissipates. They've got nowhere to go, because if you're sending love to someone who's trying to hate you, they really don't really know what to do with it. They just go, oh, and they'll just turn away from you. So you find that those negative people start to disappear out of your life because they can't be around you. If they want to stay in that negativity and that kind of like massive judgment and criticism and moaning, etc., they can't stand to be around you because you're too vibrant and light and, well, I love you anyway. And they're like, they don't want to hear that. They want an argument. So they tend to disappear, and you tend to bring in, which goes back to the law of attraction, because you're being that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, because it's really important. I think, you know, certainly, and from having taught Reiki now for over a decade, you begin to become aware of the law of attraction, and basically it means, as it does say in the Quran, that for every thought, word, action and deed we do is accountable to Allah.
Absolutely.
So on that note, we'll be back to inspire more people. On that note, we're just going to go to a break now from Living a Dynamic Life, and we'll be back soon.